Hello, my name is Professor John Benjamin, and this is Game Design at West Virginia Wesleyan College. And today we're going to talk about channel packing. This is the fourth in a series of videos where we first created an actor, a mesh in Blender, then we added a raster image to the surface of that image, and then we changed in the third video, we added more imagery to the raster image map, and then we positioned it. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to add sort of like 3 dimensions to that same raster map material and texture. So we're going to make certain parts shiny and certain parts dull and certain parts that maybe look like they have more depth than the others. All right, so what we're going to do today is we're going to start with the same image that we were working with last time in Photoshop. If you remember, we added the blood and we added our axe UV map so we could position the blood where we wanted it. But I'm going to turn off my axe UV map right here, so we're just left with this imagery here. Okay, and so we are in Photoshop, and what we need to do is break this image down, and so we emphasize on certain areas that we want to, again, either be shiny or more rough or have more depth. And what we do, how that's done is by breaking it down into channels. And so to quickly explain channels, I'll show you over here. We have in Photoshop our channels palette. So let me explain channels. And so what you have here is the full RGB image with all the colors mixed, and then you have red, green, and blue. And there's different intensities of those different color channels will determine what the color looks like. So you can see here if we just look at the red channel, the blood is very light, and so that has a lot of red. And then if we look at the green channel, it doesn't have that much green, but the green and the blue are lower. There's less color here, but when you mix them all together with the intense red, you get this nice sort of darker red. It's not a pure bright red. And so the same goes with the other colors. So we have, and there's different amounts of each of those, and those mix together to form a spectrum of color. And essentially it's 256 values of red, green, and blue. And so if you take 256 and cube it, it's like 144 million colors that can be made. And that's what channels are. And so now there's one thing, channel packing is something specific to game design, and it's where we sort of manipulate these channels to create sort of a 3D effect. So objects or actors look like they have more texture rather than creating all of those indentations in the mesh, which would be very intensive, would be very memory intensive. So rather than do that, we just have one raster image, and we sort of trick the system a little bit by manipulating these channels. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So we should have our image here, and we're going to go to our layers. All right, there they are. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be copying and pasting from this image into a blank image. So what I'll do is I'm going to go to Photoshop. Well, first I'm going to select all. So go to Select and say Select All. And then when I go to say File and New, when I selected all, the same size, which is 500 by 500 pixels, went into the clipboard. And so now Photoshop knows that's how big I want my next file to be. So I'm just going to go ahead and say Create. And so I have the same file size here, but there's really nothing in it. And the first thing I'm going to do is come over here to the background, and I'm just going to unlock that background. And I'm going to come down here to the little plus sign and make a new layer. And then we can just delete this white layer by hitting the trash can. All right, and so we have the checkerboard, which indicates no pixels or total transparent pixels. Okay, then I'm going to go back here to wood metal. So if we're dealing with Unreal Engine, like I said before, we have 4 channels that we could deal with, but to keep things simple, we're just going to work in 3. And the 3 channels are red, green, and blue, and then alpha, which is transparency. And those translate into red. The red channel is ambient occlusion, which translates into sort of like a little more depth to the texture. And it really, all it is ambient light will shine or not shine on that area, giving the kind of fake impression of it having depth. Then green is for metallic, so If there's a light area on our image in the green channel, it'll appear more metallic. And then roughness is blue. And so again, the darker textured areas or that have more contrast, lighter texture areas, pardon me, will be for the blue channel. Okay, so let's start with metallic. All right, that's an easy one. So in this case, I would like the blood to be somewhat metallic and the metal to be completely metallic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, well, first we can only work in black and white. That's the first most important thing. So let's turn this all to black and white. And we'll do that by coming down here to my adjustment layer. So I'm going to click on that and say I want to just change the whole thing to black and white. Okay, and this little properties tab will pop up, but you just have to come back over here to your layers palette to go back to where we are. And what this is an adjustment layer, so everything below it will appear black and white, and you can turn that off by turning off the eyeball. We use these because this is what's known as non-destructive editing. If you start erasing and darkening and painting, that ruins the photo, and the only way to go backwards is to hit undo. And so we try to use things like this that are non-destructive, so our photo stays intact. All right, so now everything's in black and white, and we can get rid of this UV map if we want to as well. So I want to make the metal really shiny. So what I'm going to do is I am going to put an adjustment layer above the metal that is going to make it just a lot whiter. So I'm going to go ahead up here to levels, and this is going to pop up. And then I'm going to go ahead and what I want to do is I want to make that particular layer pretty bright. I want it to be almost white because then that makes it totally shiny. All right. And then we can go back to our layers, and that's the metal part here. Now, if I don't want that to happen to the wood, so I'm going to move my wood layer up here, like so. So right now we have the metal layers almost white, so that'll be very shiny. Remember, we're working on the green channel for metallic. So I want the blood to be a little metallic as well, and so I'm going to come up here, and I can move the blood under here like so, but then the wood layer kind of gets in the way. And so what I'm actually going to do for the blood layer is I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate it. I'm going to turn one of them off. And for this one, I'm just going to change the actual layer itself rather than using an adjustment layer. And so this is what's called destructive editing. So I'm going to go to image and adjustment, and I think I'm just going to I'll go to levels again. And on the levels, I'm just going to go ahead and bring it up so the blood is really light. Because I want it to be kind of shiny. Maybe not as shiny as the metal on the blade, but pretty shiny. All right, so that should work pretty well for that. And I don't really want the wood to be that shiny. And so I'm going to darken that up a bit. And I could do that with an adjustment layer too. Or I can do the same thing with the blood here. I can duplicate that layer and turn one layer off, and then I could come up here and say image, adjustment, and levels, and I can move these so I don't want it to be, I want it to be like just kind of darker all around. So I'm going to move the gray this way. Okay, so that won't be very shiny. It probably should be a little shiny. You know, wood usually is shellacked, and so you want to have some shine. So we'll do, I guess right about there, we'll try that. Okay, and so this is going to be my green channel. That is going to be, all the light areas are going to be shiny and metallic. So now what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to copy this over to here. All right, so to do that, the easiest way I think is just to flatten all of this out, just momentarily. So I'm going to come here to this drop-down menu and say flatten image. And then what I can do is I can say select all, and then edit and copy. Then I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to edit and paste. Okay. And now let's take a look at our channels on this new file. We'll save this, we'll give it a name. And I think I'm going to call this one Wood Metal Blood Channel Pack Layers. All right, so that is there. Now if I go to the channels, I want that one to just be the green channel. And so it is for now. It's all the channels at the moment, but you'll see what I mean in a moment. So let's go back over here. and we're going to go to our layers, and we're going to hit undo. So edit, undo, and that should, I have to do a couple times, edit, undo. That should bring us back to where we were. So now let's deal with roughness. Now I don't want any roughness to be on the blade itself, or the top of the hatchet. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to create just a black layer. So what I could do is I have two wood layers here, but I'm just going to select this one. If I right click here and say select pixels, oh, that's the wood, pardon me. I want the hatchet to not have any roughness. So here's my metal hatchet. If I turn off this level, okay, that gets really dark. So what I can do now is I can actually, a better way to do it is just double click on this level. Oh, pardon me. Double click there. And then I can just darken this up. So we lightened it up last time. Now we want to darken it up because I don't really want that to have any texture, or very little. Okay, and then I go back to my layers, and then the metal is really dark. I want the wood to have lots of texture, so I'm going to come here to the wood, and I'm going to make an adjustment. And so I'm going to go to Image, Adjustment, and Levels, and let's go ahead and just make it more contrasting. That should be pretty good. And I don't want the blood really to have any texture either. That should be nice and smooth, so we can go up to the blood. I can turn this layer off, come to this one, and we'll just make it even darker. So I'm going to go ahead and, why don't I just duplicate that layer? And this one here I'm going to make nice and dark. That's pretty good. Okay, so this shouldn't have any roughness to it. All right, and once again, so this is going to be roughness for our blue channel, and I'm going to go ahead and flatten this image. So then I can go and say select all and edit, copy. Then I come back over to this one, and I'm now, here I am in my layers. I'm going to go down on my channels. Here's our green channel. I'm going to click on the blue channel, and then I'm going to say edit and paste. All right, so there's my blue channel. So here's my green, and there's my blue. So blue is roughness, so the dark areas should not be rough, and green is metallic, and so the light areas should be metallic. All right, so the last one is ambient occlusion. So let's go back here to our other file, and what we're going to need to do again is go to our layers and hit undo, or Control Z. All right. So for this one, this is the depth of some like the cracks and things. So I don't really want any depth on the metal. So I'm going to leave that dark, but I would like the blood to be have a little depth to it. And so what I'm going to do here with the blood is, I think I have this lighter blood here. I'm just going to turn that one back on. So there's the light blood. And same thing with the wood texture. So the lighter part is going to pop up, and go down, and the darker part will pop up. We want the darker part to recede. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to invert the wood. So I'm going to come down here to this really dark wood here, and I'm just going to say image, adjustment, and invert. And then I can even tweak it a little bit more. I can go to image, adjustment, levels, and maybe make it a little bit more contrasting, like so. And that should give these little dark areas a little bit more like a crevice, if you will. Okay, great. So let's flatten this. And so flatten image, and select all, and edit, copy. And we'll go to our other layer here. And then remember, we've got to go back to our channels. And this is our red channel for ambient occlusion. So we're going to say edit and paste. All right, and so here's our red channel, green channel, and blue channel. And if you bring it all together, it should look pretty wild like this. All right, and so now all we need to do is export this as a PNG. So let's go ahead and say File, and Export, quick as a PNG, or quick export PNG. And it should be called Wood Metal Blood Channel Pack, not with layers, just channel pack. All right, save that. All right, and then we're going to come back to Unreal Engine. So in Unreal Engine last time, we brought in the new blood texture. Here it is. And so here we have our actor that we created in Blender, and then it has a texture map. And so it also came in with its material. So where we want to go to add these channels, or these pack channels, is in the material. So we're going to come down here to our content and double click on the material. And then we're going to need to bring in that new that new Photoshop file with the channel pack information. So you're going to go to your folders and see where you saved it. Here's my PNG file right here. I can see it because it's crazy colors. I'm just going to drag that into my content area here. And now I can just drag it from my content up into my material. And nothing's happened because we haven't linked anything. And all we should have in here is our texture sample, which is the image that came with our FBX file. And then we drag in our new texture. So now we're going to just link up those different channels to the appropriate so here we're going to do red, which is ambient occlusion. So we click that to there. And now G is metallic, so we're going to bring that up to metallic. And that looks about right. And then B is roughness. So we're going to connect that to roughness. Whoa, yeah, that's what we're looking for, right? That's pretty shiny. I don't know if that's too shiny. Oh, you see now the wood is not so shiny, and then the head of the hatch is very shiny, maybe a little too shiny. There it is. Okay, so then you hit save. All right, and then we can probably close that out. And there is our hatchet. Okay, so let's take a look and get a good look here, see how it's doing. So you can see that the hatchet's very shiny. It's very metallic. All right, you can see it's very shiny. The head of the axe, maybe too shiny. And you can see now here, you see how the ambient light interacts different with different parts of the surface of the wood handle. And so it's shiny on the parts that are up higher and not so shiny on the parts that are lower, our axe. So it looks much more realistic. And we've done so without, with very little memory. It's just one raster file that we're using here. And there's other channels that you can kind of tinker with to get some better effects. So like for instance, and this is just channel packing, adding another channel. So if I go back into my material, and let's say for instance, I take the ambient occlusion channel and I place it down here to the pixel depth offset, and then I hit save. Again, we get a little bit more. It's a little bit more dynamic. It's just a little bit more lifelike. So we're just really, again, it's just packing. We're packing those channels with only one file and really tricking the lights into thinking that different surfaces have different textures. All right, so thanks for joining me, and good luck with that.